SFJ 4x4 Studios presents
in my oversized four-wheel drive Jeep.
a Jeep podcast starring industry experts.
Pure monosity. What? Say that again.
With mad scientist Scott Brown,
Use my drill press as a sort of blade.
our host Neil Simpson,
If one light goes out, they all go out.
filled with shenanigans.
We are really professional with Jeeps.
This is I Speak Jeep.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever, however you are joining us. This is the I Speak Jeep podcast presented by SFJ4x4.com, episode number 68. OMG. My name is Neil with Simpson Family Jeeps, and I am joined with my lovely colleagues, one of which is sighing heavily into the microphone already.
Yes.
Reading comments coming in
Yep.
online. We are a little late to start today. I'm totally throwing our friend and customer Chuck under the bus.
That's
on that
why
one.
I was sighing, because
Yeah?
of his comment.
Oh, he jumped on.
So, real quick, I'm Jeff. I'm the producer of the show.
Right.
And our comments this morning, Colleen's already saying good morning, guys.
morning,
so good morning,
Colleen.
Colleen.
Good morning.
And then Chuck, who literally is standing in our showroom looking back at us, goes, geez, been waiting forever.
I feel like he set us up.
He totally set us up.
He wined us and dined us this
But he
morning
brought
with
donuts.
donuts.
It's okay.
He brought donuts. Oh my gosh, we have the best people, and so just I love the fact Jeffrey and I were working on a side project which will be released very soon, April 19th, and it's today we were talking about echo chambers. It's a self-development. It's about kind of getting ahead and how this business has done that and whatnot. And real quick, it's the echo chamber here that I love the most is the people both within the business, on the payroll thereof or supporting it directly, and then our customers and followers.
Oh, yeah.
Spectacular. So speaking of people, good people within the business, Jeffrey, you already did your introduction. Who are you, sir?
Mad scientist Scott Brown.
The mad scientist, Scott Brown.
And Ryan is already chiming in saying, morning, fellas, and nice flannel, Doc Brown.
Thank you.
And then your wife, Amy, is saying, good morning, guys.
It
morning,
is
honey.
valuable, folks, if you are joining us in your ear holes because you're on a flight somewhere, driving down the road, whatever it might be. We appreciate you taking the time to prioritize downloading this podcast and making it part of your experience. You can join us on Mondays at 10:19 a.m.
Ish.
ish. When it's 10:19, folks, it's close enough.
And see our flannels.
If you don't believe it's 10:19, your clock must be fast.
That's right. That was to say. And
Yep,
you
have to
can
fix
join
it for
on
the
and be
time.
part of the conversations in live time. You can watch online. You can get into the comments section. A lot of people seem to enjoy that. You can interact with each other. We will read a handful of the comments, but most recently, there's been so many comments going between people that Jeffrey's only going to pick a smattering and that are relevant. But you're welcome to get in there and have a conversation with folks. Just don't get yourself banned by the by Lord King Zuckerberg.
And speaking of
Book of Faces.
speaking of conversations, you can actually get on the Patreon now and join us on Patreon. We have 3 different tiers available, and once you're on there, you get invited into our Discord channel. And what's really cool about that is the conversations that happen in Discord
Yes.
are just hilarious.
All the trips to Lowe's.
And just all the trips to Lowe's. You're going to hear about how the mad scientist Doc Brown cannot actually travel because he can't drive fast enough, and things like that.
I think what's really fun is our Patreons at that level and in that conversation get this fun experience with us, kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
us in this conversation, this show, this podcast, but they get to kind of relate to us on the weekends and during the week and get a little insight to what makes us uniquely us, And I think
they're
that's
starting to realize how crazy we actually are.
I kind of
not
got
an
that
act.
feeling that it's not an
act,
it's not an
people.
act, folks. This is you get what you pay for here, So really, this kind of level of crazy is normal.
All crazy all the time.
Yeah,
right?
It's without a doubt. So it is, episode 68, and we are going to finally finish the conversation on Jeep Alphabet Soup.
But are we?
We are. We have to. We have to, or we're gonna lose viewers and listeners.
Called it.
And then
You did say 3 to 4 episodes when we first started
we
this.
are going to have a product for our hashtag not sponsored that I'm particularly jazzed up about, mainly because battery technology is not going away, and this is not a conversation about hybrids or anything like that. It's just simply the level of what makes our batteries work and how are we maintaining them. And so we'll talk a little bit about that in our hashtag not sponsored product review. So, and it is, of course, continued value to say if you are joining us, this is a podcast about the Jeep lifestyle. And Jeep life is about DIY and rugged individualism and, kind of pursuing the impossible, right? Going places that other people haven't gone, pushing vehicles to bounds that you might not take your everyday, Ford Escort and travel to. And so...
Well, they might. We probably would.
I totally would. But the value here is that the particular group that here, we all have Jeeps. We all do Jeep things. But we are also actively in the pursuit of other skills and resources. And so we like to touch base and check in on how some of those projects are going. I know that we're all doing some updates and have had those updates both available on the Patreon and then on our personal social platforms. And you can follow us and get in on those conversations and follow along with any of our builds, really, or just me posting cute pictures of my family.
Yeah,
So,
It happens.
Jeffrey, how's that camper of yours going?
So, interesting fact, for those that are not in this region, there was a major storm cell that passed through over the weekend. It was, 60-mile-an-hour winds at
Yeah,
times.
It was interesting.
A lot of people lost power. I know Scott was one of them, unfortunately.
Yep.
I, fortunately, did not lose power for more than maybe an hour, and it was kind of a flickering power
Sure.
outage. And then it was all fine.
Real quick, I'm gonna help contextualize this. I actually have I've tried to weed through the malarkey online,
Oh,
right,
yeah.
of what people thought they were happening, and I understand that the speed that the winds reached at a consistent straight line gust was that of Category 1 hurricane.
Correct.
So that we can weed through the malarkey of what else may or may not have been.
Yeah, there was all the
happening.
reports on social media about, there was a spinning cloud. It's
Tornado
a funnel.
this,
It's called a funnel.
a that, a this,
Yeah.
whatever. What we can say for sure is Category 1 hurricane force winds.
Correct.
So
Yep.
just so you're listening in.
And
That's unusual for the Great Lakes region.
very unusual. And I had the camper was just stick built at this point. and
Stick built with plastic.
I had plastic around it to protect from rain. Was not prepared for 60-mile-an-hour winds, so I got a little panicky.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I checked my cameras because I have the outdoor cameras all around the house.
Yes.
I was constantly watching that on camera, and it barely moved in the wind.
Wow.
The plastic on the roof definitely peeled off,
Okay.
but in small stages, so I was able to go out and keep that from flying out in the
Kind of
neighbors
maintain it.
Right.
Yeah, I was able to maintain it. I did end up pulling it off completely as the rain subsided, and then I worked on it all day Sunday. Sunday was a beautiful day, and opposite of what Saturday was. Beautiful weather. So I ended up getting the decking put on the roof.
Uh-huh.
So that's done. I can tell you that my camper's strong enough to withstand hurricane force winds and have me supported on the
and
roof.
Jeffrey's on the roof.
Yeah, you're 100 pounds.
I will say it.
It's 100 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah, but it was wiggly a little bit as I got up there, so I was a little nervous. I'm like, this side force maybe not good, but it was fine.
Okay.
So the decking's all done. I got flooring put down. I just did a sheet vinyl laminate just to save on cost. Did just one big roll, 12 foot by 20 foot, and my camper's only 8 foot wide, but I didn't want seams, so I just said screw it. Let's just do the 20-foot roll of it. I stuck it through the camper, and what was hanging out, I took a Sawzall and just chopped it off.
Oh, wait a second. Of what?
Of vinyl laminate.
Okay.
Of the roll.
Okay.
Yep.
we learned
Just
some stuff
chopped
from my
right-
camper.
I guess.
Chopped right through the roll, and then rolled it out. It's all in appropriately at this point. I have built the wall for the bathroom with the doorway for that, and I have built the framing for 3 bunk beds. So
Nice.
It's all set up. That's with a triple bunk. We marked out where the windows are going to go. We marked out where the vent fans are going to go, and the goal is next Sunday I get the siding. It's on order. I could have had it sooner, but Kristen's refusing to go pick it up while I'm here.
Sure.
So
That's fine. I don't blame
I
her.
said, fine, I'll pay for the delivery because I'm a VIP member of Lowe's. It's only $20.
Oh,
Flexing.
oh, he's flexing. Oh, I'm a VIP member of.
Yeah,
Lowe's
I don't
Pro-
know that that's a flex
I
or
was gonna say.
more of, guilty admission. But so that's getting delivered. I ended up going with 29 gauge steel,
Yep.
and it's lightweight. It'll just screw right on. Won't be the cleanest look as far as that goes because you will see the screws, but it'll be watertight and affordable compared to that of aluminum or Phylon right now because I looked at Phylon rolls as well.
Okay.
And then rubber roofing. Once the siding's on the rubber roofing, I actually got delivered today already. So once that's done on the siding, I'll go up and just rubberize the roof with 1 roll of that and
Excellent.
glue that all down.
Excellent.
So it's moving along well. My hope is Easter weekend, since we have a long weekend here at the shop, that I plan to try to get some of the electrical done and have it pretty close to being ready to go on the road.
And just for the devil in the detail conversations for our listeners, you are, I think Kristen was planning a composting bathroom facility, correct? So we don't need a stink pipe coming
Correct.
up through that rubber roofing. Are you planning any of your standard RV vents up
Yeah,
there?
2 vent fans, and I mapped out where they're going to be. So one's going to be in the bathroom, one's going to be towards the front. I did reversible fans so that if we wanted the airflow to circulate through, we can have one pushing it in and one pulling it out. So you get that nice circulation going.
Nice.
So that's the plan.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is absolutely cool. And Jeffrey put a fun post out there, and it is valuable to know. We are really proud of Jeffrey as much as we harass all of each other on a regular basis. I know his grandma was very concerned that he was getting picked on.
Oh, it was funny.
And that there were naysayers in his life. He has chosen to do a bunch of different projects. And coming up in about 2 weeks or just under, you are hosting a significant charitable event
Yep.
in memoriam of your cousin, whom you were very
hosting
close to.
and organizing.
Right,
So it's
right.
quite.
And so if you're in the area, kind of the tri-state, and you're looking for something, more on the art scene, the music scene, I think there's some food. Is there food? It's at a bar restaurant place,
it's,
right?
Yeah, it's a bar and restaurant. You can order food from the bar.
Yep.
You can order drinks from the bar. It's Oasis Pub and Grill in Erie.
Okay.
It's a well-known. In the summertime, it's also a tiki bar with the outside seating. So April 14th, 7 to 10 p.m., there's going to be people competing for cash with singing songwriters. They're going to, guitars. We have a keyboardist that's
And the
going to be
name
there.
of the event,
Jason Haberle's
right? We got to say his name.
Jason Haberle's Memorial Open Mic Event.
Yep, that's how we honor people and keep their legacy living on. So
Absolutely.
very cool, and best luck with that. And I'm sorry, Grandma, if you thought we were picking on Jeffrey as he talks
We
about.
do pick on
Well,
him.
we
But we
are
made it-
picking on him. That is a valuable.
In a loving way.
That's
Yes.
right. That's right. So
We like him because we're picking on him.
and
And Colleen saying, "Oh, grandmas are the best."
Yes.
And then Joe just saying, Joe Brola said, "I suppose you're all wondering why I called for this meeting today, gentlemen."
we are, Joe. We are, in fact. And I'll mention with the hurricane force winds that my oversized storage unit house.
Your fortress?
I had no concerns.
Everybody was very.
Not me.
A lot of people. I got some text messages and all that kind of stuff. And those of you who know me well enough, not concerned.
It was not. I mean, we had to be a tornado on your block.
That house did not flex once.
It didn't.
I guarantee it. Not once.
There was
No
there
flexion.
It was fantastic. I actually was inside working in the house all day, and
If you would have had full insulation, you probably been like, "What's going on outside?"
100%. I mean, we had a couple, and of course we have one of those janky canvas tents set up just as
Oh,
a
that was gone.
That's gone.
as a temporary. Fortunately, I had showed up Saturday morning before that storm really rolled in, and I had done some
Ratchet straps.
ratchet straps and secured it back and did some
Did
further
you secure
anchoring
to a
it.
vehicle?
I did not.
Oh.
I did not. Pallets cinder blocks. You know,
It'd been like the Twister scene where the truck's just gone.
Right.
Or-
right.
And the tent's still there.
And the tent's still there. So I did. We could see the tent, and the tent wanting to just rip. And of course, my property is a very large open space, not far removed from the lake where a lot of this storm was gaining energy coming across.
Oh, Colleen's got the best advice. Post-storm, great time to look for unwanted trampolines.
I need those trampolines, and folks, I've seen a bunch of destroyed trampolines. I actually saw a great ad, and somebody was like, I really hope they were trolling on the internet, but they were like, 1 year, used only 1 year, no warranty, must remove from tree. And sure enough, had this picture of the trampoline in the tree. I am actually actively looking for those trampoline folks. So if it's reasonable for me to come and get it from you, I might actually
Even
be interested.
unreasonable, he's game.
Right.
Colleen's saying
right.
she's always on the lookout for him.
I appreciate that, Colleen. I do. Moon gates. Moon gates. That's going to have to happen in my life, apparently. But anyways, the house weathered it spectacularly. I mean, we didn't lose house wrap. We didn't lose windows. In fact, to my benefit, where there were any type of little gusts inside the building, I ran around with spray foam.
Oh,
No.
jeez. Holy cow.
I was spray foaming,
so
folks.
there's no more air coming in. This is an airtight facility.
This is an airtight facility. It's going to have a vacuum chamber.
Trying to close the door. Hold it close.
Airtight.
So-
Airtight.
It's pressurized at this point.
Yeah.
What work did you get done though besides spray foaming everything?
So we are double decking. Oh my God, I don't even want to tell you guys. So
Oh, boy.
I have subfloor,
Yep.
but the inch of subfloor isn't
enough.
sufficient for me.
Well, we talked a little bit about that previously.
So I felt papered the whole original subfloor to create a gasket of material between subfloors.
I'm over here ripping extra flooring out of my house, get me headroom back. He's over here just hold my beer. I'm gonna put another piece of wood down.
I'm going to keep. I want this to be.
Why did you do felt paper?
Because the other option was glue.
Yeah,
And-
liquid nails. You just throw a roller of that down and.
Can you imagine him?
So,
you've seen his
interestingly
foam
enough-
use.
That's true. He would have a whole subfloor of liquid nails.
Hear this.
Someone would get stuck at some point. There'd be a shoe left in the middle of the floor.
You're not wrong. Interesting.
All this tri-state area would be out of liquid
Get
nails.
this. This is actually really interesting how our life has changed via COVID. Buckets of liquid nails, and I dig this as a business owner. Buckets of liquid nails are what we would consider to be a C or D line product offering.
Yeah.
So it's actually very hard to come by right now because that affordable baseline liquid nail in a bucket has so few applications like this, and then attaching some wall paneling and whatnot, that stores it is not a regularly stocked item.
No,
So
you can
it
get
was-
the caulk tube versions of it like crazy. They're everywhere.
and
but
the caulk tube,
the
and that's
actual
what they're doing
buckets-
there because they're A/B lines. The
Yep.
caulk tubes and the smaller quantities are in huge demand. That the actual big, 5 pails that were available
Are going into
5, 7
making
years
tubes.
are going into making tubes.
Yep.
And so as I reinforce spots of the floor before we laid the paper, and I used the tubes up as well. Anyway, so we did that. I started a built-in bench seat
If
for
this
the wife.
floor ever makes any creaks at all,
I'm gonna be so mad. I'm gonna be so mad. I cannot
blame the felt
stand a
paper.
creaky floor.
If it's anything, it's a felt paper.
No. It's gasket. That's gasket. Let's
no,
call it
the
gasket.
creaking will be all the seams that he just put in.
No, maybe.
Did you put liquid nails in between the seams
I
at least?
did.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So he's got to go back through with the multi-tool
If
and
he
trim
ever
out all
has to
the
trim
the baseball bats worth of
Through
glue
that floor.
coming out of
Oh,
the seams.
God
My
help him.
God, if I have to go through that floor in the future, what a mess.
Chainsaw.
Anyways, let's move on. It was a tremendously productive week, and I actually got a ton done. And I look forward. My wife and I, she's on spring break as an educator, and we're going to take some time this week, and I will take some time off from the shop, and we're going to work together, focused on a couple projects to really bang that out and move on, as opposed to just being weekend warrior. So I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome.
Nice.
So on my part, I took Saturday off because there's a swap meet that I've been going to since I was like
I was jealous.
knee high.
Yep.
I was genuinely concerned because we hadn't heard from Scott for over 24 hours during that storm.
Scott
I'm
was
like,
busy.
I'm like, Scott got
blew
blown off
away.
the road.
Yep.
So it was kind of crazy, actually. That swap meet started pretty much at 6 a.m. and it was really funny. Setup was
That's because everybody there finally got their prune juice and
Oh.
they took their.
6 p.m. the night
Apple
before.
cider vinegar shots.
Yes.
And I ran literally out of here and headed straight there. And how much of the swap meet was set up? As I pulled into the parking lot
At 6
at
p.m.
6 p.m.
All of it.
The entire outside was completely stocked and people were leaving.
Yep.
I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody's retired and everybody's
Yeah, because they're
bored.
all retired and they're bored.
They
And-
started at like 9 that
Yeah,
morning.
yeah, 'cause
Hey,
they're-
sir, hey, it's going to be time to go to Jefferson.
oh my
So-
God, yeah. Without
The
question.
outside of this event, there was a lot of people set up outside.
No.
There's guy set outside.
No, not outside. He's talking about the perimeter of the event, I think.
Correct. This
But,
is the perimeter of the building.
But I'm saying with the outside, with the storm that came through.
Yeah, there was a lonely guy that was outside. It was one of those tough guys. I did not go outside to see what he suffered or did not suffer from. I don't imagine he was there long.
I can't imagine he was there long either. His stuff had to blow all away.
The part that I really, my wife's in the retail. She was on point. We had things organized. We had things laid out. You think I was good at shows?
Yeah.
Oh,
She killed it for you.
she killed it. We had things with tables of one type of thing. She figured out a flow. We
And
had
all the
extra
80-year-olds
tables.
were like, "This is too professional. We don't trust them," and
That's
just
all
moved right
No,
on.
we were-
I totally
We were
suffered from that years
ironically
ago.
next to a professional swap meter, which ironically also had early Ford stuff. But the big difference was he likes to carry his around every year at a really high price, while I was literally giving stuff away. I had a
So it benefited you to be next to
Oh,
him.
it was
Right.
perfect. I had a Model A motor, the block, the head, and all this stuff. And this guy, it's classic. He's the buyer. He's got a Model A Club hat on. He's at least 79. He's got his buddy that's with him in the power chair, and he's looking at it. I had $40 on this pile.
Oh God.
And he's like, "Well, they're always cracked." And I was like, "I looked at it. I don't see any cracks." "Well, it takes 5 to find a good one." "Oh, make me an offer. $30. Sold." He's like,
He just bought a motor.
he was staggered. He's like, I didn't think you would take it. And it's on a cart. Wheel it away.
Yeah, I just want
Make
to be
it
rid
go.
of it. I don't want to carry it around, and I want the $30.
We had a table, and these people were walking by. Amy had a rod and reel, and this guy picked it up, looked at it, put it down, was walking away. She went over, and she's like, "You need to buy that." And she's like, she's like, "Make me an offer." He made an offer. She accepted, and he was like, "What has just happened?" I think I just bought a rod and reel.
Oh my
So that's
God.
how we were selling stuff.
Yeah.
It was kind of crazy.
So the
By
brown booth was the booth to go to at this
It
event.
sounds like
That's the
it's-
way swap meets were supposed to be
Back in the day.
traditionally. Back in the day, you took your garbage that you didn't want anymore in your garage. You bought somebody else's garbage that you did need.
Yep.
They were both cheap, and
Yep.
everybody was happy at the
One
end.
man's trash, another man's treasure.
Yep.
And then
100%.
Simpson Family Jeeps came in and cobbed that up.
That's all right. We didn't belong in the swap meet booth. And
I know, but that's 100% what
they
we
just
did.
didn't know
though.
wher to put us.
Right, they didn't know where to put us, and I upchurched the whole
Yes,
process at
as
that
you
point.
should.
You know, yeah.
But it was pretty funny. At about 10 o'clock, we had a lull, and we looked around, and we had sold a significant amount of stuff at
10
that point. By 10 o'clock. And we're like, the tables still look full. We just moved stuff around. The
refaced it.
game.
Yep.
And we took 2 vehicles there. We brought one vehicle in the morning, said we will be throwing stuff away if it comes down to it.
Oh,
We are
dear.
not going back with 2
you
vehicles.
took 2 vehicles on Friday. You're saying
Correct.
Yeah.
And we came back with, I was able to see out the back window. There was enough, a significant amount of stuff in the Jeep, but we sold a lot of
Nice.
stuff.
Yeah, but a significant amount in one vehicle versus
Correct.
packing 2 vehicles to the gills.
100%. It
That's
was
awesome.
It was
good
perfect.
for you guys, and you had fun, right? And the value is like we like the swap meet environment, so
it was a lot of
wasn't
fun.
it wasn't arduous for you to go and participate in this.
No, I could see us trying to do this in the future as a couple. It was actually a lot of fun for us. And ironically, at a swap meet that almost never has anything I actually need. I wandered around and there was an old man from Perry that is selling his 35 sedan that had a brand new set of armrests, which I'll just tell you guys, you don't know, these things are expensive as can be and hard to find on the internet. And for some reason, there's just a armrest shortage for these cars.
For some reason.
And now, of course, everything was priced, but these armrests, I'm like, ugh.
If you have to ask, you can't afford it.
I can't have it. Right? So, and the worst part is it was 3 old guys together for this table. And the one guy was super trying to be helpful, but he's like, oh, I think that's so-and-so. I want to, nope, that's not mine. Okay. And he comes running up, an old man run. Hey, I've told you wrong. He's actually over here. Okay. Went over there. How much? He's $45. I said, $40. Okay. You bought him.
Nice.
And then he kept trying to sell me mechanical brake stuff. I was like,
No.
so I don't really have mechanical brakes anymore.
Right. Right. I'm
No
not that guy.
We didn't talk about drop axles or anything, you know.
Yeah.
I wasn't the guy for that, but
No.
it was all good. So then we were on our way home, and I needed to get gas. I had burned a whole tank of fuel out of the Jeep at this point. And I like to go to Circle K for whatever reason. I don't know.
Okay.
And they were the first casualty of the storm. Their credit card was down.
I heard Home Depot's was down over the weekend too.
I don't
Customers
know.
came in.
I bought all my supplies
Wh-
last
wh-
week.
When I was in Lowe's, a customer came in and goes, "Hey, do you have credit? Do you accept credit card?" And the cashier that was checking me out goes, "Yeah." She's like, "Well, Home Depot doesn't. Why won't they accept card and you guys will?" I'm like, "Cause Lowe's is better."
But she had
Listen
a
to
battle
this guy.
axe of a woman running that Circle K. And she
Yeah.
kept coming out there, "Job, put that thing back."
Oh,
It
dear.
was trying to load, and every time somebody pick up a pump, it would stop. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna let her, do her thing.
her.
I went down the BP, and as I was getting back in the Jeep, the gust hit, and those plastic covers over top of the fire extinguishers.
Uh-huh.
Literally watched it break in half and come at the Jeep.
Oh, boy.
And the whole roof that's over top of the pumps started swaying in the wind. And Amy's like, well, can we get out
Can we
from
get
under
going?
this?
Yeah,
Can
'cause
we
that's
get
about to
going?
collapse.
So if we came home, obviously no power. It was not a big deal. We went in, got something to eat, had a great time. Went to get kids. The kids decided to split up. One went to grandma's, one came home. And then Sunday, me and him got in the truck. We actually went to breakfast because, again, no power. Came here, bumped up tires, checked oils, made sure the shop was still alive in here. And then we went on a 50-mile trip.
Nice.
It was gorgeous.
That is awesome. And it was a beautiful day for it. I was completely unaffected by the weather. I run off of batteries and generators
Yeah.
and all of the stuff that we try to tell our listeners to do with, these things that we'll be talking about
100%.
in our hashtag not sponsored section. I was great. I didn't know the town was out of I did not know that people were out of power on Saturday because my house didn't move.
Yes.
I blissfully just kept working, and I'm running off of all alternative forms of energy out
Right.
there. And
This
so
was
as
your thing.
yeah, this was my thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I am here for the apocalypse.
So I'm going to test something out for you. I ordered something over the weekend, and if it works, you need to put one in your house.
I can't wait.
I bought a transfer switch.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to be learning how to install that. And next time this happens, I will wheel my generator over and just plug it into my house and plug it into it.
Yep.
And
He's
my lights
already
will
talked
work.
to his handyman to come over and help.
Yes.
I
I'll actually get electrocuted.
We actually have the
I've been
transfer
electrocuted
switch. My
before. It
transfer
sucks.
switch is in part. It's in my line.
Oh, cool.
So as you come into my house, my it's just like a Generac style.
Yeah.
You would have, but you're not even ever unplugging and unplugging anything in. But that's for another conversation.
Yes.
Let's
Well,
talk.
no, real quick. I want to know your profits from this swap meet.
Oh,
what
sure.
what part are you buying for the car? Because I know it's going towards the car.
Right.
Amy actually already said it's garage money, and she's fine with that. So I'm not sure yet. So we
So we have approval to use it on the car.
Right.
And because he has approval to use it in the car, he doesn't know what to do. 'Cause he
Yeah,
wasn't
not much
prepared
in
for
panic.
approval.
He's in panic mode. Yes. He's in panic mode. So a tool or anything catching your eye? I mean,
Well, there's that
always.
Milwaukee axe that you don't have
I
yet.
did see that. It was very cool.
I told Kristen I
I don't know
may
if I
have to go to
I
Home
don't
Depot
know if I'm
for that.
allowed to have an axe. I do have flannel on, but I don't know if I need a training video for using an axe.
I'll come over. We'll do some exercises with an axe
Amy,
and teach you how to
Amy
use it.
can use the axe.
That's true.
That's what it is. All right, let's actually talk about
Good
Jeeps.
morning, Darla.
Let's talk about Jeeps.
Who does
And,
that on a Jeep
I
podcast?
know, right? On a Jeep podcast, and I hope that you guys are entertained by our updates, and we hope that you join us in those conversations on our social media pages or here on the podcast.
You know what? He's in
but-
a hurry to get to this because we're going to talk about his Jeep finally.
We are going to, and Darla, she's going to be excited because we cut off at 1997.
She was very disappointed.
We
She was.
laid the groundwork. We had already talked about XJs and ZJs.
Yes.
And
Which is why we should start talking about Dub J's now.
Joe Brilla said he's a lumberjack and he's okay.
Yes.
Joe and his classic comments.
I know.
today.
I love it.
Those are great references. So we are at 1997, and we had already addressed YJs into the 90s. The XJ was happily being produced in a couple different iterations of that.
Yep. And they intended to axe it early, but then couldn't because everybody outcried.
There was a strong market demand at that point.
Yes.
Right? And they had really wanted to focus on the Grand Cherokee market.
Yep.
And I really just don't understand why the mothership constantly pursues these aspirations of just focusing on high-end luxury vehicles.
Yes.
Jeep as a branding, vessel
Yes.
is not Mercedes.
Seats were optional.
Yeah. Stop.
Seats for what?
Seats were optional.
That wasn't better.
That's fine. You brought your milk crate, which was wood then.
Yes.
And you sat on it and you drove your new Jeep home.
Yeah, and that's what built the brand. And so why we constantly at the mothership level keep trying to focus on these high-end models and then the Wrangler, right?
Yeah.
It's like high-end model and then the Wrangler.
Yes.
The Cherokee was a good platform at that point. It was successful. It was steadfast in its approach. It is important to note, I'm going to do a quick sidebar. We are, as a community, saying farewell to the Cherokee name that was released recently, that Jeep is retiring that name at this
I'm gonna
point.
be quiet for the sake of not being a snob.
I know.
Yep.
And but it is important to address, if you're listening to this, released last week, is that the second version of the Cherokee platform is retiring, and Jeep has announced that they will not continue that name on any other model. That vacuum that's left for that mid-size SUV will be replaced eventually, but the name itself, for a myriad of reasons, will no longer be applied to a model.
It's going to be the Wagoneer
base.
Mini.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and right now the Grand Cherokee is not. They're not planning for it to go away anytime soon. But eventually, people within the industry say that once it is time to retire the Grand Cherokee platform, the namesake of Cherokee itself will be completely just a historical model that was built at one time. But with that said, they thought the ZJ or the Grand was the focus of the brand at that time.
Yes.
And I loved it. I did love the Grand. You could get a V8 in it. You could.
I don't have very good memories of a ZJ, but
I
that's
think
because I kept helping you with broken down ones, and I saw all their faults.
Well, and the problem was that I think that it was a little bit ahead of its time, if you
totally.
will, with straight axle and four coils
V8.
and V8
Yeah.
in a grocery getter,
And
right?
you can't not talk about the 1 year only 5.9 limited.
Correct.
I
So
mean-
98. So that puts us, and I love the where you at. So 1998.
Yep.
We now have
The
year
last
2
of the ZJ.
We have the last of the ZJs.
Yep.
We have the XJ at its pinnacle.
Yep.
And we are solidly a year into the TJ production.
Yep.
So
We're trying to figure out heaters on TJs, but other than that, we're good to go.
no doubt. So let's
Real quick, Colleen is saying, I had several Cherokee circa 90s. I fit my son's whole drum kit and half of the band's equipment in it, even drove to a gig at 90 miles per hour.
Pauline, I don't know that I want to comment on 90 miles per hour in your Cherokee.
Filled with
Filled with
equipment.
band
Well,
equipment.
we would have heard when it crashed.
Yeah, heck yeah, we would have. That would have registered on the Richter scale if that would have. So Fantastic. I am so glad she shared. They were great vehicles. They were.
Yeah.
So 1997. Well, what is happening in the world?
Allegedly. She said allegedly.
Nah, that's fine.
Fine.
Right. Can't prove it at this point.
Yes.
You're free.
Past
You're
the
free
7
calling.
years of
Yeah, it's statute of limitations is expired. So what is happening in the world in 1995-96?
OBD2 had to be instituted into vehicles.
Correct. We actually had reached a level of governing community standards, right?
Yeah.
So the
Now,
government.
For those that don't know, what is an OBD2?
Well, that's what we're getting to.
Yeah. So OBD1 is the first type of diagnostic, and everybody in their own little home camps decided how to do it themselves. So Ford did one thing, GM did another, Honda did another, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody had their own plug. Everybody had their own spot. You had to have a tool that was universal as all get out with like 1,500 different cords to make it work.
Somewhere in our automotive history with the concept of right to repair, right?
Yep.
This idea that a vehicle can't be manufactured that the average consumer can't fix it themselves, right?
Which you could ish with OBD1. The other problem with OBD1 is it was very vague. It would be like saying that your hand got cut off, and the diagnostic code was my arm hurts.
Yes, that is the most perfect
That is great.
analogy. That is a great analogy.
Yeah.
So what's happening in the 90s at that point is the government is saying
We have standardized.
we have these standards.
Yes.
And we have to standardize the production of vehicles so that
and anybody and anywhere can scan this.
correct.
So they designed a universal plug. Then they said that it will be on the driver's side-ish, footwell of the vehicle, across all platforms, or at least inside.
Yes.
And
inside the vehicle.
And then we're going to have this bare bones basic OBD2 protocol.
You
Where
got-
we kind of went wrong there is that allowed some places to go, well, okay, we'll have our bare bones, but then we'll elaborate over top of it. And GM actually took to court because they made it so that only their scanner would talk to it. So even though we were doing this to make it so it was standardized and it was easier for people to repair, that we then made it impossible for you actually to scan it unless you had their actual
their
GM tech.
software technical stuff.
So that actually, the little mechanics won, and GM had to do a massive recall and reflash, to my knowledge, almost all 96 vehicles, so that you could then scan it.
And it's valuable to know in that era, we are standardizing airbags.
Yep.
We're standardizing the readouts from the computer control of the
And
vehicles.
that's getting added into that OBD2 as well.
And that's all into that OBD2 process. Now, one of the issues was that some manufacturers utilized that opportunity to say, to kind of take their ball from the playground and go home.
Yeah.
Right. Which is GM going, okay, cool. They're going, cool. I see this ball, but we're going to play a game only I know the rules to.
Yep.
Jeep Chrysler said, okay, I see your ball, and I'm just going to take it and leave. Exit stage left, the Wrangler,
Yeah.
right, which then had an outcry from the consumer market going, we love our Wrangler, we love our solid axles,
Yep.
and
Don't
dear
take it from
government,
us.
I don't like you because you touched me with these regulations. And Chrysler's going, yep, it's their fault, not us.
Yes.
Um,
Which, ironically, the part I really think is weird about Chrysler in that exact moment in time is they did upfit the Cherokee for OBD2 in 96. We took a 95 and a 96, you park them side by side. Joe Average would not know the difference between the two.
yes.
They had a mechanical airbag, so they did meet the airbag requirement.
Yep.
And then in 96, we went from into OBD2, even though nothing else really changed. The gauge cluster, the motor, all that other stuff did not change. So they proved they could do it.
Yes.
And then at the same time was like, but the YJ is too hard.
Yes, and that's exactly what they said, folks, was the YJ's too hard. That's
Yeah.
what they told us. I just think that is a super line of BS.
Yes, they could have
And
done it.
They could have done it.
They proved they could have done it.
And then by 97, in both platforms, XJ and YJ,
Yep.
they bring a vehicle to market that will arguably change history.
Yes.
In both of those vehicles, that just solidifies the iconic nature of what the Jeep brand, almost as important as the CJ2As, in my opinion.
Oh, definitely.
Right? And so the TJ comes to market. It shares, as we mentioned in one of the last Alphabet Soup conversations, it shares a body width of arguably the CJ2As. And it has a similar short wheelbase that has been iconic to the Jeep experience.
Yep.
You get the convertible top and optional doors.
And they went back to round headlights.
And they went back to round
That
headlights.
was a peace offering because they took their leaf springs away.
Because they took the because the leaf springs were for the poors, so they had to do something new. Because again, they're pushing into new markets, people who had never had a Jeep before. They're giving a ride quality more comparable to that Grand Cherokee,
Yes.
right? Because they learned the four corner coil experience
Yep.
was just that much better.
Yep.
And now we have the suspension geometry that our newest JL JT owners know and love.
Yep.
Right? Because you've got, control arms, you've got 4 control arms and track bars,
Yep.
which are, unique vernacular to our industry. If you were to talk to a GM or a Ford person, they call those components different words.
Yep.
But that's when we really see that level of suspension geometry, push forward into
And the
existence.
smartest thing they did is back again. You could then go and buy your bare bones 4-cylinder 5-speed, no AC, soft top, plain Jane seats.
You could actually buy a manual, no power steering
Yes.
TJ Wrangler.
Yes.
You could buy a no power steering TJ Wrangler. It's
You
wild.
could bare bones, cheap as possible, which again was a peace offering for all the people who just lost all their stuff they held
right.
dear.
Right.
And then at the same time you could get a Sahara, which had all the niceties for a Wrangler.
Right.
You
and
still
it
had
looked
to,
pretty.
had to
and-
wind your window down yourself.
Yeah.
But you know.
Yeah. JKJL owners, you don't know anything about that.
no.
But we had to crank our windows back in the day.
I know something about that.
Well,
Uh-oh.
you do, because you have a stripper package.
That's right.
Yes. Yeah. Your JT is a stripper
Calm down.
package.
Calm down.
Yes.
We're talking
I wanted
about-
my kids to understand how to roll up a window.
That's true.
When you say roll up a window, it's not pushing a button.
That's true. That is true. It's literally rolling it up.
Yeah.
So the TJ comes out and they name it the TJ
Yeah.
for no apparent reason.
No,
We don't know.
we don't know.
Tom's Jeep.
Tom's Jeep. That was the engineer. Tom, he figured it out.
But it sold really well.
It did.
And it just made them reinvest. I wanted to say myself, I believe that was a change in the Jeep market for aftermarket as well. Suddenly you now had new brands come to the market, and they looked at it as a whole new opportunity.
That's what it was. It was today's Jeep.
I like,
like
it.
that.
I like it. Right? You heard it here first, folks.
Yes.
And I've been in this industry for a long, long
Never
time.
heard that.
And I have never heard that. It is today's Jeep. Seize the day,
That's
Chrysler
it.
said.
It's actually yesterday's Jeep now, but
Yeah,
that's okay.
that's the YJ, right? We're back to the YJs. Goodness. So happening in the wings at the same time, because I have to talk about like the coolest Jeeps ever built,
Oh boy.
was with some friends and acquaintances of ours, was I think what they called the TJ1, right? Was
Something
that
like that.
the long wheelbase?
Something like that. And then it somehow became the LJ.
Well, it was TJL.
Yeah.
Well, it was TJ Unlimited.
Yes.
So first
Yeah.
and foremost, it was TJ Unlimited, and
I'm gonna do something.
Bruce,
He's gonna hate it first.
I need Bruce to come on to this. I think Jerry and Bruce, and this is my call out to you guys right now. These are individuals that I tremendously respect.
Yep.
If you go back and you look at the Toledo Jeep Festival footage from 2022, the most recent one, you'll see me do an interview or a conversation with Bruce. I would love for Jerry and Bruce to prioritize their time to come out here to be on the show with us and tell us, because
And-
these
and
are the
teach us.
guys
That
and
would be
teach us
amazing.
and teach us, because these are the guys who revolutionized and they are so humble they don't know it, but they
Yeah.
revolutionized the industry for all the rest of us.
So he's really wanting to get to the LJ. I'm gonna take it back just a second.
I knew you were going to do a thing.
So we have to talk about the Rubicon in 2003. So we're not the 2004 and a half yet.
You're right.
Calm
We
down.
need to.
Sit back
the
down.
TJR. We need the TJR.
And I got to tell this story. I remember it classically as we watched the Rubicon happen.
Yes.
And the story goes is that we always take a Jeep over the Rubicon Trail.
Right.
And we're talking the upper echelon of this mothership would go and take off their Doc Martens for a week and put some boots on.
Wow.
And
After
figure
we
out-
just invite those guys onto the show.
Well,
Not
you know,
those guys,
Not
the
those
high
guys.
guys.
Okay.
the board people.
The
Oh,
the
okay.
board
Okay.
level, right?
Yeah.
The board level.
board
We-
level wasn't
we
going
probably
down the
hate all them
Rubicon Trail.
together. So anyway,
Yeah, I was gonna say Jerry and Bruce would probably not talk nicely about the board level people and the choice, the bean counters, if you will.
So
right?
they picked, I think it was 2 Jeeps to install ARBs and a 4-to-1 transfer case aftermarket in the Jeeps and kept it hush hush. And they were driving this fleet of Jeeps over the trail, and carnage happens, stuff ripped off and that kind of stuff. But that's how you earn your trail
badge.
ragged
Yeah.
badge.
Your trail rated badge there. Yep.
And they were like, wow, these certain Jeeps are really making a big difference, and they're really easy to go over it. And that's when they were like, take the veil off. Well, we actually outfitted them with that, and they're like, huh. And they're like, we think this would sell. So they tried it, and iconic Jeep was born.
Right. The Rubicon, right? And
Yep.
and it pays homage to, how these mechanical horses,
Yep.
arguably, these quarter-ton reconnaissance vehicles, traversed history from, a wartime effort to a recreational multi-purpose vehicle.
Yep.
And that rugged adventure that they were on through that process, and how they have solidly ingrained themselves in our markets.
Yep.
Of the off-road, the off-road consumer's experience, and the Rubicon model
Yep.
was born.
And,
right?
and honestly, I think that really plays into what you really want to talk about is because in 2004 you could not get a Rubicon LJ.
Right.
It had not proven itself yet.
Right.
Oh, welcome to the show, Daniel. He's saying first time getting to watch the podcast.
Hey, Daniel, I'm glad you're joining us.
So, and for those that don't know, the LJ was a half-year release.
Mhm.
It was halfway through 2004. I remember the ad well that you would pull on this pull tab, and your Jeep would get longer in your book.
Yes.
It was awesome.
It wasn't called the LJ yet.
No,
It
it's
was
the
called
Unlimited.
the TJ Unlimited.
Yes,
And
and I wanted one immediately.
oh my God, everybody did, because you got that narrower width, right?
Yep.
That was different than the full size guys.
Yep.
And at this time, arguably, I'm going to make a whole side conversation that mini trucking was a big thing. So
Yeah.
we kind of liked narrower vehicles. Like we had gone the H1 route, the Hummer route, where everything
Right.
was
And
huge
ripping
and
things
wide.
off.
Yeah, and they're just hammering between trees. If you are trying to do technical trails here in the Great Lakes to the
Well, then the
Midwest, New
LJ is too
England,
long.
well,
can
at that
attest.
point, that was the
No, it's
argument. That
Hush
was the
you.
argument
No, it's
then,
not.
right?
Hush you.
But the width between trees, as we tried to weave, because
Yeah.
you're used to driving your little CJ5 through there,
Yes.
right?
I can attest to that.
So, so at that point in time, you got that slightly, 59 and a half inches,
Yeah.
60 inches.
Daddy
but-
Jeep saying, just got here. What did I miss? You missed a lot. You're going to
No,
have to
you
go
didn't
back
miss
to the
anything.
beginning.
You're good. You're good, Rob.
And really, where for me it was I like to haul crap in my vehicle,
100%.
and suddenly I had more room to haul crap.
And it came standard with a Dana 44 rear end.
Yes, and it
And-
had the nicer trim package inside.
Nicer trim package. It came standard with the Dana 44 rear end with a limited slip device in the
Yes.
back. It had a traction device.
Yep.
So we legitimately created a platform-based vehicle, a vehicle you could walk up to the lot and buy one of the most trail-worthy vehicles because of that longer wheelbase. It handled better on the road.
Yep.
And because of its added traction devices and more robust rear axle,
Yep.
you could simply do more.
And for a Jeep nerd like me, you could go in and buy a less outfitted model, and you decide, oh, I want an auto dim rearview mirror. Guess what? The plug's in the dash. Plug it in and it works. I was
Yes.
so giddy when I did that to mine.
And-
And then you put the 6-disc CD changer in the dash because that was
Well, that's what it was.
it was early
20
2000s.
plus years ago.
And it worked.
Yep.
And it was awesome. I was so happy. I'm adding options to my
It
vehicle.
was highly modular, and
Yes.
that's what starts the conversation where our JL and JT owners are entering the market now. It
Yep.
started then,
Then,
right? And still at that time, we have these fantastic builders who are stick building suspensions, who are stick building bumpers, back from the CJ era, and then a little bit in the YJs, where they had these aftermarket accessories available, but they were a little more rude, a little more heavy.
Yeah.
They weren't the same level of precision manufacturing.
And for those that don't know, that've just gotten into Jeeps the last 10 years, you used to go buy a bumper and it fit a YJ and a TJ at the same time.
Yeah.
Because the TJ hadn't proved itself.
Yes.
I'm not going to put all my eggs in one basket.
Right. And there was enough similarities, but there was also enough rudeness in the tolerances that the
Yeah.
fit and finish wasn't as important.
We can
I mean,
oblong that hole and make it work.
Yes. And honestly, your general consumer didn't care as much. At this point in
Yeah.
time, we have higher needs as an aftermarket industry.
Yep.
But the Unlimited starts to get called the long Jeep.
Well, I'd say it was always the LJ because I remember this whole contention, and we're the elitists of us LJ people, and I remember modifying my Jeep, and the front plastic thing that said Jeep, obviously that had to go away really soon, and the trim tag was underneath that, and right first two letters on it was LJ, and I was like, validated.
Validated. So I personally believe, and of course we don't have anybody who I believe has been an authority in the conversation. I think there were some engineers, and this is where Bruce would be a value in the conversation. I think there were some people who were already calling it the LJ,
100%.
right? And I think that there was some grassroots movement to call it the LJ, a murmur from within, but that the actual marketing department did not want to deviate from the
Yes.
branding that they were applying to the TJ.
Yep.
They wanted to say, hey, it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck.
Yep.
It's just a little longer than a duck.
Yeah.
But we're still just going to call it a TJ, and then a TJ Unlimited.
Yep.
And I think that enough of that authentic, organic, grassroots, calling it the LJ, referring to it to LJ in classified documents or internal communications,
Yep.
out on the trail at EJS, that kind of stuff, then murmured through the community.
100%.
And because I absolutely remember, because of course forums were a big thing at this point, and you're
Yes.
getting on forums going, well, I've got an LJ, and then there being people going, well, there's no such thing as an LJ.
Oh yeah, they were all up in arms.
No,
about
it's
it.
an Unlimited, and I'm like, and then
At
you had,
at this point, all that is gone. Thankfully.
all of it is gone, and that's what the value of Alphabet Soup conversation is the
Yeah.
fact that appreciating where that conversation was, because at
Yes.
one point in time we used to squabble, much like can you fit 35s on no inches of lift.
Yes.
We used to squabble about whether or not the LJ was the actual
Name.
alphabet,
Yes.
acronym for this Jeep, right?
Right.
So as much as I want to I could go on and on about the
we could have
platform.
a whole podcast about an Unlimited.
Yeah, which
we're-
we're not going to. Let's circle back to what Jeep, again, that huge diversity of what they're offering, and go into that Grand.
Yep.
What happens in 99?
99, the WJ comes out.
The worst production vehicle,
so
Worst Jeep, WJ?
worst Jeep.
So those that don't know, that was the test bed for the JK. It is
Without question.
It is weird to say that because it is not a JK, it is not a Wrangler, but it was wider, it was heavier, and it was a cross-platform. So we had the old motor, the old 4-liter soldiering on. They had to put a V8 in it just to keep the Grand people happy,
Yes.
I feel.
Yes.
But that also opened them up to 5-speed automatics.
Mm-hmm.
They, for whatever unknown reason, decided to let the 35 soldier on, but wider in a heavier vehicle, because that was a good idea. And
Daddy Jeep goes, hey, I like my new WJ.
Yes. So, and I'll get back into how I feel about WJs after Scott gets. through
and
his
I've owned
process.
one, so I think I'm okay.
I had no 4.
Yep.
I had a 2000, so do they ride nice? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do they tow decently? Yes. The 4-liter was not good on gas, but it was good other ways.
See, I had the 8.
otherwise. I'm sorry.
Yeah, especially in 04.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You had
Trust
the
me, I
4,
had the
you had the
problems.
4.7 at that point.
I had the problems with it.
But we had a low pinion, wide Dana 30 in the front of this Jeep. Did not matter if you had a V8 or a 6, and it was just not a good axle.
Mm-hmm.
We had double isolation. We had rubber on the top and the bottom because we're in a Grand, darn it, and it can't make a noise.
It has to have all the absorption, of
Yes.
any noise, vibration, harshness, NVH.
And they never, I don't really think they intended, yes, it had a straight axle because it was trendy to have a straight axle and it was a Jeep, but I don't think they ever intended people to use them for what they are now currently using them for.
Correct.
Ever. But because that's when I started seeing isolators on the bottom for the first time in my life. We're putting a budget lift on the axle instead of above the coil, and I scratched my head for a minute.
Yes.
But I did do that. I budget boosted mine. It was actually my wife's daily, and we put some off take. That was by the time we had gotten it, the JKs were out, and we went and got a stock set of JK wheels and tires and put on there, and
Shared the same bolt pattern.
Shared
in
the
fact,
same
it was
bolt
the
pattern.
first time. It
Imagine
was the first
that.
time in mothership, Chrysler history.
since the 5x5.5 went away.
Since the 5 and 5.5 went away in the CJs, everything moved to a 5 on 4.5 lug pattern.
Which, for those that don't know, is everybody uses.
Oh my gosh, GM used it. It was almost as
Well, GM
standardized
didn't
as
use
the.
it, but Dodge.
My wife's Impala is. Well,
Oh.
it's a millimeter off of
Yes.
the.
Hush.
Whoa, the
Calm
Impala
down.
guys
Sit
are
down.
on fire.
Calm down. Calm down.
You're right. It's a millimeter off.
Anyway,
Shots fired.
Ford, Chrysler, Jeep,
Yes.
Mitsubishis. I mean,
Yes.
there's all kinds of vehicles that use this pattern. Yes, there's some millimeter ones that are close.
Yes, you're right. You're right. I was
But
mistaken.
GM, I would
'cause
actually
my,
say is-
my hillbilly nature would be like, I could throw 5 on 4.5 on the
Yeah,
Impala.
You can. It's
You
not
can,
right.
but it's not right.
GM,
You
for
got
whatever
me.
reason, always has to have, well, that's our bolt pattern.
Yes, it's a millimeter difference.
Because they have 4 3/4 instead of 4 1/2.
Yes. So what ends up happening with the Dub J by 99? We kill off the ZJ,
Yep.
right? The XJ was supposed to die, but
But
it
it
soldiers
didn't.
on for a couple more years.
Yeah, it's a zombie XJ at this point.
I think we're using that straight axle in the front end because that's what we know.
Yes.
And financially it makes sense, right?
Yes.
Because despite the fact that the rest of the world is going to IFS, which is independent front suspension,
Yes.
and some people are even trying with IRS, independent rear.
Yeah.
That was too taboo.
Well,
and
I'll even go one further. I think it was not at a good time for Chrysler because they weren't doing the best.
100%, they're tanking.
They're tanking
again.
Imagine that.
Again,
Seems
you
like
own
always.
Jeep. You own a Jeep, and now we're tanking,
And,
right?
and then Daimler steps in
No.
to assist.
Throwing the assist, right?
And I can only imagine the arguments that must have happened.
the Europeans are itching.
You
again,
need
going,
IFS.
Oh, who's doing accents
Wow!
now? Who's doing accents
I love
now?
it, Scott.
Yes,
More accents.
we're gonna have a compete. We're just gonna do like an accent episode.
Oh,
Yes.
no,
Oh,
it's gonna
my
be
God,
so
here we
bad.
go.
So many
Equal
people.
opportunity offenders.
Oh, so
I
many of us.
apologize, but I'll
I
do it more.
don't.
That was
because-
awesome.
Because Chrysler is tanking again, right?
Yeah.
By the late '90s, that's just actively happening.
Yep.
They're on the chopping block. There's a lot of other cool automotive history happening at the time.
Yep.
And because of them, their low cash flow, there are people wanting to buy bits and pieces of them.
Yep.
The frustration with the Dub J in '99 is you already mentioned those axles. They literally went to Dana, and I shouldn't say this because I don't know it authentically, but
Well, it's a rumor mill. We'll just say that, and
they
then just say
didn't
your
want.
piece.
They knew that they were making bigger, heavier, wider Jeeps, right? They
Right.
knew
Well,
that was
it's-
coming.
It's kind of like, hey, we're gonna make this new model, and it's bigger than it ever has been. It weighs more, but we're broke.
right.
So you're not
What can
gonna
you do for us?
Or you're not gonna retool
what can
anything.
what can you do for us? It's like having no bargaining chips.
Yeah.
and be
Axle
like-
shafts are cheap. Just make them longer.
Yeah.
Don't change the center at all.
So we and folks, and you might not understand the gravity of that, but the fact that you have this puny little bearing that's carrying the rotational load of the drivetrain
Yeah.
that was on arguably a 800 or 1,000 pound lighter vehicle.
Yep.
And now we've widened the bridge without giving it any additional support
At all.
At all. and
They
just,
did change one ball joint.
They did. You're right. They changed ball joint,
And we
which
did-
shows up in the JK later on.
And we did get the 2 high knuckle, low knuckle, which excited all the older people. They were like, "Oh, there's actually a part on a Dub J that I'm excited to get."
And I think they
off the
needed
jump.
to flatten out the steering a little bit,
Yes.
and again give it that
grand
responsive, that grand experience.
Yes.
But that's what's happening by 99, and the electronics were
So bad.
so bad.
Yes.
And we just had one in recently. We did a whole bunch of troubleshooting diagnostics
Oh, yeah.
on, and this is all predating the JK's experience.
And I know I didn't mind my WJ, but who, in the comments or on the YouTube, you should go on there. Who had a WJ and whose driver's door didn't work?
oh yeah.
And whose interior light stayed on?
Who had
all
windows
the
just
time.
randomly going up and down?
That was exciting.
Oh,
Kept
yeah.
driving,
What,
It was a
it
standard feature.
Was it a grand experience?
It was
for
a
you?
grand experience.
And it was not a drive unless it binged
It was
and
grand
bonged at you and
diagnostics.
complained about something.
And that is what that for me contextualizes. That's the dark years of the Grand.
Yeah.
The platform. When we talk about modifying them, they're even challenging because the wheel wells
So small.
right? So we have this.
I put 30s on it, and it was a challenge.
I love the platform, but you basically got to rip the axles out, rip the suspension out. You do a lot of sawzall work. Tight.
Put a bare bones electrical system in
Bare
it.
bones electrical system, and now you have a cool vehicle. You know?
And it will wheel. My wife put that places that she had no
Great
business.
vehicle. Great vehicle for that.
Yeah.
And even if you're just doing it with kind of in a stock configuration, it's still a very capable.
It was very
vehicle.
capable.
It
Yeah, 'cause
really is.
Mine was. I left it stock, but I did a lot of things with it
right.
that I shouldn't have.
It's probably arguably at this point in time best for the Daddy Jeep guys who are going to modify and fix and maintenance appropriately. I would not put it in my top 10 of, hey, I'm excited to be a new Jeep owner and I
I'm
want to
gonna
get
buy
into
this.
off-roading.
Yeah.
Right.
This is not
If you're
the
19
platform.
and want to get into Jeeps, don't buy a
This is
WJ.
not the platform.
Other
right?
than a tree will not take door handles off, I can attest.
nice. So Daimler gets in late 3.
The arguments start.
and so Mercedes heavily has their hand in by 04. Okay.
Yes.
And we're still very much, now we're into that LJ. We are actually into a pretty capable Dub J at that point. They worked out some of the bugs of the 99s through the 01s.
The dark years.
The dark years of the Dub J. We're actually getting pretty good. We've killed off the XJ.
Yep.
We just have 2 models.
Yep.
So we get into the KJ. I'm looking at you, Linda and Joe. All right. So we get the KJ.
Which is, I will say, it's a transitional vehicle. There was people that never owned a Jeep before that got a KJ.
and shouldn't have.
Well,
Joe's coming for you in the
I
comments
know
right
he
now.
is.
It's
I
on
know he
fire
is.
right now. And what did we see? Finally, the arguments have decided enough that they had to give the Daimler people an IFS.
They gave them an IFS.
But in true fashion, we went to the Dana and was like, we're still broke.
We're still broke.
So,
We don't want you to build us anything tough.
no, or new.
What can you reuse?
Can you make a 30 that's an IFS?
Yes.
Ford's been
absolutely.
doing this for years. Can you do it? And they're like, I don't want to.
I don't want
Joe's in the comments.
Joe's in
like
the
you said.
comments
just
for
like
you,
said.
Jeffrey.
Yeah.
I knew he was coming.
And in the back, they're like, okay, we've angered Dana so much. Now we need to use our corporate axle in the back.
Right. They
Which is-
said, we didn't piss you off enough, Dana. we don't actually have any money. We're
Yeah.
going to try and do some GM things here. We're
Yes.
going to make our own axles.
Which I was excited because I was an XJ guy when that happened. And suddenly I could bolt on rear discs without oblonging things and all that sort
Right.
of stuff. And I was one of those guys tearing apart the first Liberty that hit the
hit the junkyard.
hit the junkyard for the rear disc brakes.
It's probably mine.
So the KJ comes out in 05,
Yep.
I believe. Or is it earlier than that even yet?
So 01 or 02.
02. 02, because
02,
they
yep.
killed the
Limited
XJ.
editions.
That's right.
That's what I had was the O2.
That's right. They
sorry.
kill the they kill that. They kill the Cherokee and they give
it
us
was
the
blue.
Liberty.
The thing I think
It was blue.
it was.
I can picture exactly which Liberty
I know
it was.
what blue he's talking about. The funny part that is, and this is why I had reservations about killing off the Cherokee. Overseas, the Liberty was a Cherokee.
Mm-hmm.
For some unknown reason here, we had to make it a Liberty.
Yes.
So to me, the Cherokee died in 2001
Yes. Yes.
because the name did cease.
You're going with the namesake.
Yeah.
On the new the
If they would have
the
kept
new
it
model.
going like they did in the UK and stuff, I'd be here for it.
I see. You're in your true old man fashion.
Yes,
You know,
angered me.
Contextualization of it angered me. So the Liberty comes out and it is marketed. I'm sorry, Joe. It is marketed towards a population who would never buy a Jeep.
Yes.
Right. That is they actively
saw
said
people in RAV4s and were like, "You need to buy a Jeep."
there was actually a market analysis at the time that was talking about how do we get women owners into the market.
Yes.
And the Liberty
Helped
was
a
it,
lot.
right? So
Everybody knows a woman that owned a Liberty.
and Jeffrey.
Well, to be fair, it was actually my parents purchased the vehicle. I just
Who's
took it over.
was it? Your mom's or your dad's?
It was my mom's.
Okay. So,
You guys nailed it.
the thing is that it was actually a constructed market to say that at that point in time, as far as study groups were concerned, the harsher the straight line vehicles
Yeah.
resonated better with your traditional male population
Yep.
and Jeep. Daimler Chrysler said at that point in
Roundier,
time,
friendlier vehicles.
right, we needed that more round, softer lines out of the vehicle itself.
It's ugly. So Daddy Jeep is saying the NP 231 cable shifter from the KJ is a good junkyard grab.
It is. It's absolutely great. And honestly, the KJ, I got to be honest with you, I actually really like a KJ. The problem I had was they were actually very poorly made. So a lot of the plastics broke off.
Yep.
Well, they were broke.
They were right. They were broke. They were
They're
trying
like,
to make.
they're kicking the neon for parts.
they're
They're kicking the Dodge Neon, the Plymouth Neon.
There
for
was
parts.
absolutely no rear visibility either.
no. The bulbous nature of the body of it.
Well, basically what you got to do is just look at that era of a RAV or a CRV, and that's what Jeep looked at.
they were
to
trying
make
to
the
compete
Liberty.
at a price point and a product size.
And where's the tire on those?
Joe is saying the cute Jeep in
Yes.
quotes.
I love it. And cute spelled with a K as well.
No, he
Oh,
spelled
okay.
it
Well,
right.
I'm going to call it the cute Jeep spelled with a K for the KJ. What I did.
The Hello Kitty Jeep.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, but wait a
went
second.
there.
They tried to make it tough. They tried to make it tough with the Renegade package.
They did.
And
They're like, you know who's going to make all the old men happy? Let's put all the lights on the roof.
I would buy a Renegade package trim level KJ today. I would buy it.
Only way
So
I do it if I had a
Joe
diesel
said
on it.
aluminum front differential. We grenaded ours at SOR.
I believe it.
Yeah.
And that was the challenge. It was a Dana 30, but it was not a Dana 30, and there was a lot of challenges with that. The rear axle was a quality, tough rear axle. And we actually know that you can do a lot of stuff in two-wheel drive. Much of America was built on two-wheel drive.
Yep.
It's only been in the latter half of the last 50 years that we have had four-wheel drive comfortably as a kind of a standard from our auto manufacturers. Everything else was in two-wheel drive.
And then, you
Just
had
chained up and locked things.
and for those that don't know, you could buy a four-cylinder standard shift Liberty. They didn't make a lot of them that I've
Right.
seen, but they did exist. You had the god-awful 3.7 that you wanted to pop heavy gaskets every 5 minutes. And then
Can't get to sensors because the engine bay was too tight.
and you can just tell that this is really a Daimler heavy influence vehicle. Then finally we get a CRD four-cylinder diesel.
And we just keep playing with diesel over and over again
Yeah.
in history. We can't put enough resource into the actual appropriate production of a quality, clean
Yep.
diesel engine, despite the fact that it makes the most sense. But
Well,
whatever.
and what it was easy because they made a diesel version overseas.
yes.
And they were like, well, we can put this on it or try to make the EPA happy with this, and we can sell it over here. And it didn't cost us any extra.
Right.
That one just didn't get exported.
Right.
And then they did the same thing with the Grand. You get a 3.0 V6 diesel, which, again, I think Daimler had a big, heavy hand in.
Yes. At that point in time, we moved solidly on into the Dub K experience of
Yep.
the Grand.
Which I'm sorry. I like
And
the looks of them.
Joe's got a good point. We learned so much about wheeling by starting off with a Liberty. We had to rely more on our brains than our hardware.
Joe,
That's a
true.
great point.
that is my number one piece of advice. As much as I love people coming in and bringing a Jeep that they just bought off the lot, got 300 miles on it, and they bring it to us and they go, "Hey, I want to build the heck out of it." That's awesome, and we enjoy that from a build standpoint. But from a capable off-road experience, I love people to get out there and just use their Jeep the way it is in kind of a stock configuration.
Well, on top of that, I can count multiple people I know that started in a Liberty or a Grand and now drive a Wrangler.
Sure.
100%.
And get into it and learn the limitations, learn
Does this fit my lifestyle?
does this fit my lifestyle? Those kinds of things are so valuable. And then it's like, I always tell people my 87 YJ was a turd. It was a problem child. That is what really bore the life into this business, because I had to learn
How to fix it.
Yeah. And the parts and pieces from other
If it was
applications.
a good vehicle, we may not be here.
That's right. Right. If it was a good vehicle, this could have been a null and void conversation.
But I really think that those vehicles that weren't so good, the WJs, the KJs, that's why the JK was so popular, because they got the heart of the conversation, and they overlooked the shortcomings, and they're like, okay, I'm that one's tired, it's broken.
Yes.
My 3.7 has blown up.
Yes.
I need to go in and reinvest.
Yes.
And that's why JK starts selling
and
so
I
well.
think that Mercedes is hitting its stride with Chrysler at that point.
Yep.
As we move through, the TJ era, we had really improved upon things with the LJ, with the Rubicons. That 04 to 06 TJ and LJ is arguably one of the best
Yes.
eras of Jeeps to own.
Yep.
Honestly, the Grand from that 04, 05 Grand was actually despite some of your experiences, it was still one of the better Grands
If you have to
own.
buy a WJ,
Those are the better ones to own.
get an 03, 04.
Right. By 05, they're into the Dub Ks.
Yeah.
And the Dub
I'm
K,
sorry.
and I think they moved it over here into this corner, and they said, hey, this department gets to build this luxury vehicle. It's going to get IFS now.
Yes.
It's going to get a solid rear axle. They're going to play with some things, but we're going to put the focus back onto the Wrangler platform in development. They go to Dana, and they say, tool us some new axles
And they're
finally.
like, thank God.
Right. The Dana engineers are like, we've been waiting for this.
Yes. And we suddenly can do a high pinion again.
Yes. And they and the level of the vehicle for the JK, as they're getting ready to release the JK, is a buzz. Everybody is excited internally. They are finally going to pull all of this stuff they've been learning under a singular platform, except the motor.
Yes.
So I'm going to stop and say, are we going to
Blew their
continue this
budget.
to another episode?
No,
Or-
because we went last episode, the very first episode, we did JLJTs and JK. I
Yeah.
think we have found ourselves at that stop point.
Yeah.
We have finalized our appropriate
and our final
context.
thing on that is, I'm sorry, early JK owners, your motor is a minivan motor.
Well, and that does happen.
I
It was
mean-
used for years in caravans.
But our
I
alphabet
mean-
soup, we don't really have a great answer for what those 2-letter or 3-letter
Nope.
insignia is.
Folklore.
That they mean or whatnot. It's left for history to interpret. I do like today's Jeep and yuppie Jeep and
Oh, yeah.
a couple of the other things we've
JL for Jeep Life.
Jeep Life or Long Jeep, but things that we've conceptualized along the way, and that's fun. But alphabet soup, it has to do with what's happening in the world at the time and what those platforms are and how we got from point A to point B. Brings us right back to the JK where we talked about on the episode three shows ago. We are going to transition to #NotSponsored and talk about this cool product I have in front of me, so stay tuned and we'll be right back.
And now it's time for our product spotlight.
Not sponsored.
Spotlight.
Not sponsored.
So what is that?
So, as mentioned before, when we started talking about the heightened level of battery needs that our industry has,
All of them.
all of them. If your battery is not putting out appropriate voltage, especially in our newest platforms, even just a weak battery can send the whole vehicle into chaos. They are so highly electrically sensitive now that if your battery is a little bit discharged, it can affect the actual drivability and kind of regular function of the vehicle.
Yep.
But it can actually more quickly depreciate the lifespan of that battery.
Yep.
It's not like, again, those CJs that had just a few electronics.
Yep.
That battery could actually go bad over a very long
the
period
days
of time.
you owning 5 vehicles and that battery being in all of them
Yes.
are past.
Are past.
Joe commented saying, "Ha, I can dig it."
Yeah, no doubt you can, Joe. So there's so much electrical sensitivity as we move forward. The other piece that one might argue when we talk about lead acid batteries and where we are at now with AGMs in standard in most of our production vehicles,
Yes.
battery technology has changed wildly over the advent of the
How they
automotive
get
industry.
as much punch out of a small package.
Correct. So batteries aren't going away anytime soon. In fact, they're only getting more and more important, and
More and more complex.
more and more complex. Our vehicles are more complex. So this product is made by NOCO, and is leading the industry. Centec, NOCO, and maybe one or two others are leading the recharging or charging industry. We have a number of NOCO products here in-house. We also have the Centex. And this is the Genius 2D, right? And I don't actually know that the D means direct, but I like to call it direct because there is a Genius, there is a Genius 2.
I'm so disappointed.
I know. You were waiting.
You've been calling it the Genesis all week. I was waiting for you to call it the
He
Genius
was
today,
looking
or the
at
Genesis today, so that I could call you out on it.
I called it the Genesis
You've
before?
been calling it
Did.
Genesis all week.
I was like, going to hit you with a
Yep.
Sonic the
all
Hedgehog
week
reference.
last week. Oh, absolutely.
If
I was
I,
all set for the Sega references.
That's funny because I couldn't have put $100 down. I would have called it a Genius, period.
Nope, that's been a Genesis for the whole week.
Crazy.
He read the box.
I know, that's what it is.
Crazy. All right. Well, so the Genius 2D is a direct installation under the hood of your vehicle, right? It has a little fabric bracket and then like a keeper strap on it. And this is intended to be direct mounted in whatever your application might be. You then hardwire the post mounts onto your battery or batteries. And then it gives you 24 inches of standard 110 plug-in cable that you can wrap up or then let it stick out of your hood or out of your grill. If you are running like a little overlanding gig for your trailer, this might be a great way to keep your batteries tended.
Where this really plays nice is in perfect examples where I'm at. Garage space is very precious, and all the old things are in the garage, and they have a tender that lives on a shelf and gets plugged in.
Correct.
My JK sits outside,
Yes.
and if during the summer months, it sits outside and doesn't get used. So
Yes.
something like this that is mounted to the vehicle, nobody's gonna come up and steal it because it's physically attached. You just have to plug your Jeep in.
Yes. And it keeps your battery at full capacity.
Right.
Um,
So when you're running home and you have a bad storm, and you're running in with the CJ, but you got to go to the grocery store and you go over to the JK and
Right, and
That
you want
doesn't
that
happen.
battery to be full charge. The only thing that we, can't guarantee you is how well this is environmentally sealed. So if you're doing a lot of water, sand, mud crossings,
if you're a snorkel guy, this may not be for you.
this may not be for you. You may want to remove this before you go and do those things. However, if you're a person who actively puts your vehicle on a tender, or you should be a person who actively
Yes.
puts your vehicle on a tender.
And honestly, I think that's getting more and more. People don't realize they should be, but you should be.
And that is exactly the point of what this current push I have elected to do is that with these new batteries and the electrical sensitivity of our vehicles, tending might just be the wave of the future
Yeah.
for this foreseeable production history.
Especially when
right?
the battery's $300.
Oh,
without,
right.
without a question. And
And how much is this?
this is $45.
Now, what's another thing? What kind of batteries does this charge?
This charges all the batteries.
Exactly.
which is valuable because right now there are kind of 3 different categories of batteries, and we'll spend some time in the near future talking about that. But there are AGM, gel, and your standard regular sealed batteries, which we used to think were lead acid, but it's a hybrid version of
And
that.
if you have a
Chuck,
newer
Chuck's
battery,
trying to get himself kicked off Facebook again, but his conversion van needs a tender, is what he's saying.
It does.
I'm not going to repeat his actual
no,
comment
yeah,
because
yeah,
he's going to
that's
get
fine.
himself in trouble.
Yeah.
But the nice thing about this is, if you have grandpa's battery charger or your dad's like I do, you really shouldn't go take that and put it on your new AGM $350 battery.
Without question, right? You
Yeah.
should not be using that trusty battery charger that we all, arguably grew up with,
If it's
that
a-
just flat out
If
works.
it's half the size of this table, it probably shouldn't go on your new battery.
It should not go on your new JKJL JT. It just shouldn't. And if you're an older model platform vehicle owner and you have an Optima, an Odyssey,
Yep.
any of those, or even the newer ultralight batteries, Grandpa's tender shouldn't go on there. Grandpa's jump starter battery charger should not go on your vehicle, and that's just what we're going to be living through.
Yep.
So if somebody wants to come into our shop and buy one of those, how much are we selling them for?
$45. That's what we got.
$45.
$45. It's a great little product. If you need us to do the installation, we can do the installation, but we're happy to walk you through it. We do have these available in our retail showroom for you. And
as long as you don't own 10 vehicles like me, you can't hardly beat that price.
right, but $450 over the course of 10 vehicles. If you were to
yeah.
do a $300 battery
Per
each
vehicle.
one,
Per vehicle. That hurts.
$450 on an insurance policy versus $3,000+ on vehicles. At some
Yeah.
point in time, we talk about the long game. Something like this actually makes more sense.
Yep.
All right, folks, it has been an absolute pleasure talking Alphabet Soup with you. We are not going to be here on Easter Monday, right?
Yep.
That is valuable. Mark your calendars. We've got one more episode before we take a short break here for the hardworking individuals of SFJ 4x4. We will be off Easter
And Neil.
Monday. And
Shots fired.
no doubt. And we'll be back in the following week from there.
See, Grandma, he dishes it out just as much.
That's
as
right. That's right. If you can't take it, don't dish it. And I've lived by that mantra my
Absolutely.
life. So we have had a great time. We have one more episode for you before we take a quick break for the springtime and Easter celebrations. We appreciate you being part of our Jeep family, joining us in the comments, in your ear holes, on your favorite streaming platform, on your YouTube, on the I Speak Jeep podcast channel, and then, of course, here live on Facebook. We've got Jeeps to build, lots of cool projects coming up, and we have Tech Tuesday videos coming out soon on the SFJ 4x4 YouTube channel. Make sure you check that out.
And coming up episode, I think we're going to be talking about building a dream on a budget.
Oh, exciting. Well, folks, with no further ado, Jeep on.
Keep on.
Jeep on.